Hey yo, what's good everybody? It's your boy Matthew Maley for MatthewMaley.com. Well, I figured NBA playoffs are about to start tomorrow. So, just like I did with the NFL, let's do a wrap-up video of the season as well as a preview of the playoffs. And each round of the playoffs, we'll do a recap. So, first off, best team in the league, best player in the league, just like last year, with the Heat and Mr. King LeBron James. LeBron actually found a way to be even better and more efficient and even more of an MVP than last year, which is saying something. In my opinion, he's a shoo-in for the MVP. The only person that I think could really give him a little bit of challenge is, and I don't even know if it's possible just because it's only been this past month, but Melo has come out of nowhere and has made the Knicks look like world beaters, actually looking like potential competition for the Heat. Absolutely just, I mean, it is a very tight race in my mind between who the better scorer is, Melo or Durant. And this year, based on the scoring title, Melo took it. So shout out to Melo for winning his first scoring title. Sucks it would have been nice for Durant to have gotten his fourth straight, but at the end of the day, like Durant said, it's not that big of a deal. He's going for hardware, which sadly I don't think he's going to get, but we'll get to that in a second. Overall, it was some pretty solid action. Great season. I love basketball, as you guys know. It was probably my first love in terms of watching and playing, and I still absolutely love it. Some major storylines, kind of developed from both positive sides and negative sides. Positive is how LeBron has turned back into the positive icon. He's kind of completed the full circle. He was that in Cleveland, then he went to Miami. He was the villain. Last year when they won, he became, like he started to get back to the positive element. Now I think he's officially there. From the commercials for, I think it's for Sprint, just everything. He's really gone back to being the person that he was, in my opinion, of public eye. I love the guy regardless. In fact, I liked him even more when people said, he was the bad guy. That's part of the reason I started liking LeBron so much. I'd always liked LeBron, but he wasn't my favorite player until he went to Miami, and I had to defend him against everybody so much that finally I just said, you know what, this guy's my favorite player. And turned into somewhat of a Heat fan. Also partly because the Suns, who, as you guys know, born and raised in Arizona, I've been a huge Suns fan my whole life. But we had an absolutely atrocious year. I mean, we have a collection of players either past their prime or complimentary players, from Michael Beasley, Goran Dragic, to Jermaine O'Neal. I mean, Scola, just people that, even if I like them, like Sebastian Telfair, who I've always loved, they're not what you need to win, especially not in the West. But I digress to my last statement, which is regarding the major storylines. The biggest storyline of the year is, without a doubt, the LA Lakers and their miserable failure. As anybody who isn't living under a rock knows, they acquired Steve Nash from the Suns, as well as the new Superman to replace their old Superman of Shaq with that of Dwight Howard, and also hired the old Suns coach as well, Mike D'Antoni, and everything went horribly wrong. From injuries that you wouldn't believe, to the Big Four not knowing how to play with each other, to D'Antoni trying to put in a offensive scheme from Arizona that didn't work, or from Phoenix. But amazingly, they did make the playoffs. And not only did they make the playoffs, they made it to the 7th seed. But it was at the expense of Mr. Kobe Bryant's Achilles tendon. Everybody had said D'Antoni's playing him too hard, and what do you know? He played him too hard. Next thing you know, Kobe's out until next year. And there's even talk, I mean, it's crazy, but there's even talk that he might never play again. He's going to play again. He's Kobe. There's no way he's going to go out. Just like Mariano Rivera. He wasn't going out with his torn ACL. He was coming back. But there's talk they might amnesty him. If the Lakers amnesty his contract, that brings up whole new things. That's another discussion for another video. But I'm definitely curious to see what happens. It's very tumultuous, to say the least. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens. But overall, really solid year. I'm definitely curious to see the end of year, who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year. My opinion, LeBron should win Defensive Player of the Year. They won't give it to him because, especially if he wins the MVP, then they definitely won't give it to him, even though he probably deserves it. But regardless, let's hop into it, and I will give you a full breakdown of the playoff schedule. So starting off in the Eastern Conference, number 1 overall seed is the Miami Heat. They're going to be going up against the number 8 seed, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. And Brandon Jennings, who I'm a big fan of, actually said he was happy about that and predicted the Bucks to win in 6. So he needs to drug test him. Seed number 2 is the New York Knicks, who are going up against the 7th seed of the Celtics. It should be a very interesting matchup. Even though Celtics are getting a little bit older, that's been a rivalry from the onset of basketball. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens with that. I definitely could see that going to be, 5, 6, 7 games if the Celtics can show up and Melo isn't crazy on fire like he was. If he is, that series ain't going more than 5. If he keeps shooting like he was, series ain't going more than 5. The 3-6 matchup is the Indiana Pacers against the Atlanta Hawks. My personal opinion, I don't see how the Hawks do anything in this. The Pacers have looked really solid. The only thing, which is a weird stat, is going back, including the playoffs and last season, the Hawks have won 11 straight games in Atlanta against the Pacers. So who knows? Maybe, that can tie into it. They can win a game in Indianapolis and maybe pull it out. Who knows? And then the number 4-5 seed is this pretty solid matchup, in my opinion. It's the Nets versus the Bulls. The Nets are very hit or miss, and the Bulls are missing their best player. So, plus Joakim Noah's injured. I think Boozer's a little nicked up. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. If the Nets show up the way the Nets can play with Deron Williams and Brook Lopez, Gerald Wallace, they can be a top 3 in the East team. I mean, if they play to their potential, I think they could beat anybody other than possibly New York and definitely not Miami in the East. So I think that's going to be a really good series. There's talk that Derrick Rose might come back. I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't give in to the pressure, to everything. Though, I do hope he does, for the sake that I think it'll throw off the team chemistry and the Heat will beat him that much easier if it were to be that matchup. But I just think, with that kind of, you haven't been there all year. Mentally, you're not in the right place. Why? Just to make the fans happy? If you're not mentally in the right place, just wait. Wait until next year. Then when you can really give your team a chance to win a championship. That's just my opinion. So there we have the Eastern Conference. I am predicting that it is going to be a 1-2 matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals between the Knicks and the Heat, with the Heat winning in 6 games. And they will then be playing, we'll get to that in a second because let's go through the Western Conference. Western Conference, the number 1 seed is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They will be going up against the 8 seed in the Rockets, so you get James Harden going up against his old team. The number 2 seed are the San Antonio Spurs, who will be going up against the LA Lakers, who were the 7 seed. Because they ended up winning out their games, they were actually able to not only lock up the 8 seed, but jump into the 7th seed, which brings up a couple interesting things that actually a lot of analysts are talking about, and I agree with. There's so many interesting elements that can come up when it comes to matchups. In my opinion, the Rockets might win a game against Oklahoma City. And the Spurs probably will sweep the Lakers, might lose 1 game. But, and it's something that a lot of people have mentioned, if those matchups were flipped, the Lakers are still probably going to lose to the to Oklahoma City. But 3 or 4 different analysts were picking the Rockets to beat the Spurs. So that could have been really interesting if it would have gone that way. It didn't, so who cares? But it could have been interesting. Shows, how what some people think is a meaningless last game actually mattered, to how the seeding set up potentially. The number 3-6 game is the Denver Nuggets versus the Golden State Warriors. Big shout out to 2 of my favorite coaches in the league. George Karl for the Nuggets, Mark Jackson for the Warriors. Always used to love Mark Jackson as a commentator for ESPN. I think he did some for TNT as well. So since he went to Golden State, I've kind of been keeping an eye on him. Plus, they've got a great young team. Steph Curry is a beast. David Lee is the most underappreciated double-double king. He actually had the most double-doubles this season, which is amazing. I think it's partly because of the skin tone that he doesn't quite get the props he deserves, but whatever. It's another time and day for that conversation. Finally, the 4-5 matchup is the Clippers versus the Grizzlies, which really should be an interesting matchup because you've got the fast-paced, run-and-gun lob city of the Clippers, and you've got the slow it down, grind it out, bang them, half-court defensive mindset of the of the Grizzlies. So it's going to be very interesting to see those. It's kind of the, immovable force versus unstoppable object, and seeing which one's going to win of those two. I honestly think that if the Clippers can keep playing their game, they will win that no problem. But the problem is that if the Grizzlies can slow them down and get the Clippers to play the Grizzlies game, I personally don't think that the Clippers have a good enough half-court game plan, or anybody other than Chris Paul who can really, Chauncey Billups and Caron Butler probably as well, can create their own shots. They're a team that relies on run and gun, relies on penetration, relies on the alley-oops. Blake Griffin isn't creating much of his own shot. DeAndre Jordan definitely isn't creating his own shot. So it'll be very interesting to see if the Clippers do slow them down into a half-court set. It definitely could bode much better for Memphis. So there you have it. That is the wrap-up of the 2012-2013 NBA season, as well as the opening of the playoffs. They start tomorrow. So definitely follow me on Twitter, because I'm always tweeting about sports, as you guys know. It's really the only thing I tweet about anymore. But definitely stay tuned and check that out. So there you have it. Thank you as always for sticking with me. Like I said in my past video, it's been a tumultuous few months, but I'm back on it. I'm back on my grind. I'm back in a good mental spot, so we're going to stick with it and stay at it. So as always, thank you guys for sticking with me and checking out my videos. So I am Matthew Maley. This is MatthewMaley.com. Check me out, the rest of my videos on MatthewMaley.com. Check out the current video blog tab, as well as all my previous entries, the previous video blog tab. You can check me out directly on YouTube if you like. Just search for Matthew Maley Poker or MatthewMaley.com. You can check out my whole channel there. Throw me a like, throw me a comment, subscribe to the channel, all that. Follow me on Twitter. I am at Matthew Maley. I'm always tweeting. Always use the hashtag Matthew Maley Poker. So check me out on there or MatthewMaley.com. You can also check me out on Facebook. Search for the Matthew Maley Poker page. Put all my big bulletins and stuff up there. And finally, follow me on Instagram at Matthew Maley Poker. Always putting up new pictures from Vegas, poker, all kinds of fun stuff. So check me out on there. Stay tuned, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace out, y'all.